Dinesh, welcome to Melbourne.
Thanks, Jude. My pleasure.
Thank you. Are you able to just share with me how you ended up being a partner, a Noble and Associates?
Well, absolutely, Jude. Started my career way back in India about 14, 15 years ago with my CA studies initially in India. So I started my career in public practice with my CA studies and continued to be in public practice after finishing my CA studies. A little later, got an opportunity in the commerce. With a lot of economic changes and developments happening in India, there was quite tempting opportunities at that stage. Where I was always been inclined to public practice as such, but wasn't a irresistible offer at that stage when I jumped onto.
Money talks, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I jumped onto commerce at that stage and worked very well for me because I got a lot of exposure in commerce, rising up to a level of the chief financial officer of a company which was listed in the public stock exchange in India. And before I decided to move to Australia, so decided to move back to public practice actually, had to do my CPA studies over here. So
Sure.
I finished training with the CPA. I got a few exemptions in terms of writing the few units. Started in public practice again, and then I started my expertise over in Australian tax as well.
Okay.
So tried to specialize since then in the taxation here. And eventually moved to a partner role recently, a couple of years ago. So,
Very good.
With Noble and Associates.
If we just take a step back, what were the drivers for you to re-enter public practice?
Now, that's been my inclination towards the public practice. I always had a flavor of advisory and consulting roles. So even though in my commerce role, I have been a lot of advisory to the board and stuff, so which has given me quite a bit of an exposure and has helping me out to act as an advisor in the public practice. So I was sort of determined when I moved here I wanted to start in a public practice. It was initially a little bit difficult because just coming straight away from a commerce role opens a lot of opportunities in the commerce rather than in a public practice, with a lot of lack of local exposure in the public practice. Predetermined to start there, been able to succeed in that, get a role, and in a couple of years just move on to a partner's role.
What are some of the benefits of being in public practice?
I would say personally, coming back from a commerce background has given me, a close exposure to the business side of the things, which is actually helping me in an advisor role because I can look at the things more closely from a mindset of a businessman as a client. So. Well, as advantages of public practice, I think there's a lot of grooming and overall balanced development in a public practice role. I find it quite satisfying and rewarding when you're sort of in a public practice, looking at the things more broadly rather than just being focused on a very narrow approach sometimes. Well, it actually depends in the commerce as well. If you're a financial controller or CFO role, you've got a few things at your disposal and. Overall, I think I find quite gratifying to be in a public practice role.
Excellent. What was your proudest moment in terms of your career achievement, being a practitioner in public practice and an owner of a business too?
Well, success is always a state of mind as such, and I define normally success with satisfaction. So having exposed myself both in commerce and public practice and then settling back again in the public practice, soon reaching a partner's role again in Australia, it's been quite rewarding for me, and I feel quite satisfied to have achieved that pretty soon after migrating to Australia, after a few initial hiccups as such, I would say. And being involved with various session forums and being on CPA Public Practice Community Champion and sitting here front of you, just being interviewed for being an inspiration for the new practitioners, I think is quite satisfactory for me.
Well done, Dinesh. In terms of your area of specialisation, which is taxation services, where do you see the taxation landscape landing?
Well, there's a lot of revolution happening in the compliance industry as such within the taxation area. Well, it's quite broader when we look at the taxation aspect. Apart from the compliance, there's a lot of advisory work associated with it. But if I look at the compliance side of things, which is more prevalent in the small to medium accounting firms, it's quite challenging, especially with the new cloud environment coming up. The technology is really sort of putting a pressure on the small and medium accounting firms. With the introduction of standard business reporting, the government heading towards more simplifying the compliance industry, especially the personal and the small business tax returns. So I see compliance becoming a commodity in the near future, which is going to be a real pressure on the revenue of the small firms, especially if they are sort of dependent on on the small and personal business tax returns. So
Okay.
they need to reorient themselves and move a little bit more towards advisory, I would say, to have a sustenance in the future. Of course, the accounting firms which are heading towards all those changes, they're changing their attitude and are becoming more proactive in other services. Pretty much the clients demand additional services from their advisor, and with various stats and surveys, accountants are still considered the best trusted advisor for the clients. Really needs to open up in providing the associated service around the taxation.
Okay.
Pure reliance on the compliance would be a challenging task.
Because what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that perhaps it's appropriate time now to perhaps embrace some of the challenges we're facing. You're talking about perhaps the commoditisation of compliance services,
Exactly.
if I heard you correctly, and then to branch out and to look for that value add.
Exactly.
To supplement the perhaps
Well,
lost revenue.
Yeah, exactly. The technology around accounting these days is really making it challenging and bringing efficiencies in the compliance operations. A lot of cloud environments, just simplifying the whole process of compliance as such from the client side and from
And
the
has that
practitioner.
worked for your client base in terms of cloud computing? Is that what you're doing at your firm?
We actually started our own cloud-based environment
Okay.
a couple of years ago, before the products coming in the market as such. So we host a small cloud environment which actually helps our clients to load their data files on our
Sure.
servers and provide a real value-added services onto their data files. So that's been working very well for them. So we've been tuned to that change already.
Okay.
That's a good of a preparation for us heading towards the future and facing those challenges.
Okay. Whilst we're on the technology front, so would it be fair to say that your firm may have also embraced the whole social media networking? Is your firm embracing that, or are you personally embracing that? And do you see the need to embrace that in order to remain relevant to not only your staff, but to some of your perhaps younger clients?
Well, I would say yes, but not on a very extensive scale at this stage.
Okay.
Of course, the social media is the talk of the day at the moment. And one of the challenges with the social media, especially with the professional firms or the accounting firms, is the time factor. As a service industry, we basically sell time. How much time that justifies the overall social media is a bit of a challenge, but definitely there are advantages with the younger generation and
Sure.
with the new face of the client. It's, of course, they need a presence over there.
Fair
But we always embrace technology. And we try to explore in the new technology projects. Noble & Associates is one of the first few companies in Australia, I would say, to develop a program called Lodge IT,
Yes.
to lodge the tax and other forms to the federal government's new next generation data gateway.
Okay.
So, which is under the SPR regime of the federal government. So,
Okay, excellent.
So it's quite good achievement for the firm as such. At the
Well,
moment.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That's very good. What are some of the key attributes that perhaps you can share with us in terms of what makes your culture work?
I think we give adequate importance to the culture and the service approach in our practice. Keep it quite open and friendly and knowledge-seeking environment within the practice, and always give an opportunity and also encourage our staff to involve themselves in new projects and developing
Sure.
new processes to bring more efficiencies in the system. I think it works very well, keeps the young staff especially very motivated, and especially, it's actually becoming difficult to attract young people towards the public practice because they want some changes in the culture. They want to look at the things in their own way. Keeps them motivated and going. So we try to keep a very open atmosphere for the young staff.
Okay. What about client relations? Do you expose all your staff at all levels to clients' contact, or do you actually how do you go about handling that, and what makes it work again for you at your practice?
I think the client relationships are very key for any professional and service-based organization. So we try to drive relationship with the clients by performing on the delivery side.
Sure.
And we appreciate that each client relationship is quite unique and needs a little bit of a customization. So we train our staff, try to expose them towards the client interaction in their stage of sort of development.
Sure.
But the graduates would probably take a little while to get prepared, for an exposure towards the client interaction. But yes, of course, that's one of the key steps in the overall training program of the candidates. So fairly soon, they start interacting with the clients. Yeah.
So you run a pretty extensive on-the-job and off-the-job training from the sound of it, in terms of giving them exposure to dealing with clients. Do you actually perhaps have mock training, or not mock training, but like coordinated training scenarios where you would word a client up and say, listen, I want you to be difficult so that to this particular staff, so that he is exposed to, I suppose, some real life situation of conflict resolution?
Depending upon the right time and opportunity, when we feel
Sure.
the staff is sort of prepared enough to give them real life practical exposure to the client. So maybe starting with more smaller clients,
Yes.
going up to the to more significant businesses. So
Sure. Thought leadership is something that I always go on about. I'm still trying to work it through. I like to think that I've got some idea. My view of it is that where we are today, we need to perhaps have our mind thinking 12 months ahead relative to some of the possible issues. Do you see that as being an important part of being a business owner as a public practitioner? And secondly, how important is it that you believe that it is for your people to also start thinking along that line?
we try to be proactive in the thought leadership side of things, because on the firm side, as I've mentioned, we try to explore in
Great
more
demonstration, that's
in
right.
the technology areas, where it's been a huge success to launch that large IT program, which will soon be a product available in the market, and we're trying to link that with some bigger models in the market, so that it can be integrated and easily available along with the other tools. So that's more on the overall firm level. At an individual level, I try to involve myself in various discussions, groups and forums, to be more updated and challenged in the overall development side of the practice. And one of the good achievements was I've been involved with the Perth chapter of the Institute of Chartered Accountants here, being a CA member back in India as well. So we try to promote that chapter here in Perth as well, to help the new migrants settling down in the profession, and helping them to keep up to date with the knowledge and their CPD requirements as well.
Yes.
And lately been involved with the CPA discussion as a public practice community champion. So these are some of the facets where we think we've been sort of trying to be proactive in the thought leadership concept.
Dinesh, I understand you in fact played the role of a champion of the CPA online community. How has that been for you?
Quite a good platform, I would say. It's a very good initiative by CPA in the public practice area. It's good knowledge sharing platform. Keeps you quite motivated, especially for myself. Keeps me motivated and looking forward to writing articles.
You actually write articles?
Yeah, because I'm on the blog side of the things. So it's
Okay.
basically the forum side of the things and the blog side of the things. So the forum is more regular. It's interesting to look at how people come up with different ideas
Yes.
in the public practice area from all the diverse backgrounds. So everybody's got their own expertise in the areas. So, and sometimes it's quite friendly in terms of saving your time. You just go to the blog and read views about the people, and you probably would have spent time reading and researching on those areas to find an answer to those questions. So it's quite interesting, I would say.
So it's actually been beneficial. What I'm hearing you saying is that you've actually benefited, you've also learned. Not only
Yes,
are
of
you
course.
just putting information up there, you're actually engaging with other professionals, and actually it's a quicker way to get solutions to answers.
To questions as
to
well.
Questions,
yeah. So
There you go.
I feel satisfied being contributing to as well, and learning from the whole platform. On the forum side of things as well, there are quite good discussions happening. So you can even put the silly questions out there and just
those are the most important questions, those ones.
Yeah, exactly. Some of your doubts, you can just get it cleared, and you develop a close-knit community, and people start knowing you, and you start looking forward to articles of different people. So working well, I would say, and it's grown tremendously over time, I would say.
Excellent. Corporate social responsibilities, where do you personally sit on it? Where does your firm sit on it in terms of the common adage that accountants, or most professionals in fact, ought to be giving something back to the community?
We are a member of a lot of local business associations and social networks around our area, various business communities are around an area. So I try to contribute by being members and trying to be active speakers and try to serve to the community that way. We sponsor certain social events as well around our business communities in the local area. Well, CSR as such, I think, is emerging as a very critical strategy with these economic and climatic changes happening around the globe. But I personally feel at the moment it's more prevalent with big corporations and big practices. I would say maybe due to the financial commitment. It depends how you want to keep yourself active in the overall scenario, maybe at a smaller level. So it might not be CSR in a big way, but yeah, serving to the community at a local business community level, I think certainly is an endeavour.
Well, certainly what works for you and your community is not a one-size-fits-all, that's for sure, with CSR.
Yeah.
With all these commitments you do with the CPA, with being a partner, do you actually have much time outside of work to actually indulge in some leisure? If you do find the time, what do you like doing?
Well, I would say I love my exercise and spending time with the family.
Okay.
I love traveling and learning about history of different cultures, actually. So
Excellent.
it keeps me a little bit motivated. I would say work-life balance is quite important for me. I try to strike a balance to maintain a good balance between the two, and probably a good time management a little bit, keeping a little bit of discipline in my routine.
Sure.
And having good adequate resources at the work level, frees up a lot of time to maintain a balance and look after the practice development as well.
So what was the last destination you travelled to? Apart from Melbourne, of course.
I went to Singapore
recently,
about 6 months ago. I took a cruise and just went around few destinations.
Lovely.
So that was a small family holiday.
If I was a graduate, what would contemplating entering public practice, what would be your top 3 advice to me?
I think focus is very critical and very essential for the new graduates who are entering the public practice. A firm state of mind and to have a commitment towards the public practice. It's not an easy success in the practice if you sort of not decided between the commerce and practice, always depended upon the opportunities. So with the tougher times, specialization is the way to go forward. So unless you want to jump into the profession with a firm mind and specializing in a particular area, it'll be a difficult time. And and then probably I would say good business and leadership skills with some business ethics and personal integrity. Last not least, I would say the people skills, which is very important for building up client relationships. A little bit determined to keep a continuous education process and overall development.
Your advice to me, if I was a manager working for you, wanting to take over your job, what would you say to me? Would it be similar to what you said to me if I was a graduate, or what would be different?
Well, the basic ingredients remain the same. So those levels of skill sets are of course required at any level of your public practice career. But just when you're moving from a manager or from graduate to a manager and from a manager to a partner role, what comes more with that is the responsibility.
Well said,
so it is a challenge to maintain good relationship with the clients, their demands and satisfaction levels. So, and a good balance being a practitioner and a manager. Because especially when you're moving from manager to a practitioner level, I would say you are stepping into the shoes of a businessman rather than just a practitioner. So we at a partner level consider this as more as a business, having various arms to it rather than just being a practitioner. So I think with a little bit more open mind and more challenges to be accepted.
My personal view is that the skill set is very transferable, and you've proven it. You've done your CFO position now. You've come back into public practice. You've come back to the right side of the fence. If I can be cheeky about it. Would that be your view too, that it is very transferable and it's very valuable to say, perhaps to directors or board members in terms of the knowledge and skill set we bring from running our own business?
I won't say no, because I've done it, and succeeded in it. Two sides of the coin. One is moving from public practice to commerce and from commerce to public practice. I would say it's a little bit more easy transition moving from public practice to commerce. because there's always a demand for technical skills out in commerce. So if you specialize in particular areas, your public practice, maybe taxation or audit side of the services, you can get absorbed at a certain stage of your career in the commerce, and then you can be focused on moving on to financial controller roles, etc. A little bit more difficult transition from commerce to public practice, because maybe your knowledge area is limited to particular side of the things. And
Sure.
But I would say, it basically depends upon how enthusiastic you are or a person is to adapt any side of the career. By adapting their existing skills, it probably needs a little bit more enthusiasm to adopt things. And yeah.
We spoke previously about thought leadership, and your firm's demonstrated, to my belief anyway, quite a fair bit of thought leadership in terms of this software you've developed. What other developments do you see that practitioners ought to be aware of now that's going to hit them, say, in 12 months' time, either from a legislative perspective, from a practice management issue, or other structuring issues for practices? Should we perhaps disband in the whole partnership concept and just corporatise? Where do you see perhaps some of the challenges coming from? What might they be?
Of course, technology, which is making a lot of changes in the efficiencies and making the compliance as a commodity. The government simplifying the compliance industry, especially in the personal tax return side of the things, and probably I think will leave lesser firms and larger firms. So there'll be a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in the accounting industry. So there'll be a lot of consolidation, I would say. Corporatization is definitely a way forward, because we have a more of a board culture with a CEO appointing who's basically taking faster decisions rather than a more traditional partnership structure where decision making is a very slow process. And dedicated focus to marketing, corporate culture becoming more prevalent. You need a dedicated person looking at the marketing, so that the more time is available with the decision makers or the technical team as such to develop the technical side of the things, and getting an attraction of the young grads towards the practice. It would be a challenge as well, because they want to look at the things in their own way. They want a culture different to what has been. So Gen Y onwards, sort of is a bit of a challenge in the industry. So, but along with that brings some opportunities as well, I would say. Compliance sort of becoming tougher. A lot of new services are opening up, especially with the demand of the clients to have additional services being provided by the accountants. So a lot of opportunity for developing new business services around the compliance, which is a good opportunity as well, I would say.
Thank you very much, Dinesh.
Thanks
for coming in today.
Thank you, Stuart. My pleasure.
Thank you.